Explain how teaching Queen Noor of Jordan's family to fly a hot air balloon uniquely positioned you to negotiate with Saddam Hussein for hostages.
So I got to know King Hussein and Queen Noor of Jordan through flying them in a hot air balloon over Amman, their capital city, with their children on board, and going across the chimney tops, and the people looking up at this balloon, and then just seeing their king and their queen and the princes waving down at them. It was quite a moment. And then Saddam Hussein was holding some hostages to try to avert the Allies invading him. And I wanted to try to see if we could, get these hostages out. And so I went and saw King Hussein at the Royal Palace, and I wrote a letter to Saddam Hussein and asked him if he could translate it for me, which he did. And he then sent a messenger to Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein responded and said, yes, if you're willing to come in one of your 747s to Baghdad, I will come to the airport. I will bring the ill hostages to the airport. If you could bring some medical supplies for Iraq, that would be wonderful. And 3 days later, we flew into Baghdad. It was an eerie, incredible experience. I mean, no plane had flown in for months and months. The lights went on at the last minute. And we met Saddam Hussein at the airport, and he handed over the hostages. And as we left Iraqi airspace, there was a almighty cheer. And when the second Iraq war looked like it was going to happen, I, for one, was vehemently against the idea of it. I thought it was a dreadful mistake, one of the worst mistakes since the invasion of Vietnam all those years ago. And because I got to know Saddam Hussein, briefly, I thought maybe I could try to persuade him to step down and go and live somewhere else in order to avoid the war.
And you've later reflected on this being the biggest regret of your life.
Yeah, ISIS came because of the invasion of Iraq. I mean, it was the sacking of all those police and all the military, and giving them no hope after the successful invasion of Iraq that resulted in ISIS and all the other horrors that have gone on. The whole balance between Sunnis and Shiites has been ruined because of it. So we were trying to stop it. So we asked Saddam Hussein, would you be willing to entertain Nelson Mandela coming and seeing you? And the idea was that Nelson Mandela would arrive in Baghdad, would persuade Saddam Hussein to leave Baghdad to save his countrymen and to save an unnecessary war, and then go and live in somewhere like Libya for the rest of his life. I asked Mandela if he would go, and he said he would go if Kofi Annan, who was then Secretary General of the United Nations, would go with him. I asked Kofi Annan if he would come as well, and he agreed to go. And then sadly, a couple of days before they went, the bombing started and the meeting never took place. Who's to know whether how history might have been changed if that meeting had taken place. But one positive thing came out of it, and that was an idea that if these elders like Kofi Annan or Nelson Mandela could have such influence over somebody like Saddam Hussein, maybe we should get a group of elders together. And Peter Gabriel and myself set up with Nelson Mandela a group of global leaders who now go into conflict regions to try to resolve conflicts. And the elders started under Nelson Mandela's blessing, with his blessing. And then you had Archbishop Tutu running them. Now you have Kofi Annan running them. And it's just 12 incredible men and women who've got maybe the biggest moral authority in the world, the biggest respect in the world of any group of people. And they've done some fantastic work.
How about the most interesting conversation you ever had over the years with Nelson Mandela?
Anytime he came to lunch, he would try to hit you up for a lot of money for good causes, and he had lots of good causes. So I had lunch with him and Grasha Michelle, his wife, and myself and my wife and children. And we got through the first course, the second course, the third course. We were on to the coffee, and I was thinking, I've got away with it. and then he turned to me and said, "Oh, Richard, by the way, last week I had lunch with Bill Gates, and he gave me $50 million for our half." Anyway, no, I mean, he was just an extraordinary man who was always thinking about other people. Yeah, somebody that I think the whole world has looked up to, and Archbishop Tutu has continued to carry the banner ever since with a lot of grace and good humor.
And you ended up rescuing a lot of South African health clubs that were in financial trouble thanks to
so he rang me up one day. I just got back from South Africa. He rang me up. I was in the bath, and he said, "Richard, a chain of health clubs with 6,000 people working there is about to go bankrupt. I want you on the next plane down. I want you to come and rescue the health clubs." And I did get on the next plane, and we did rescue the health clubs. And actually, it's become one of our most successful businesses. And so now Virgin Active has, I don't know, over 200 health clubs in South Africa. So it's the kind of thing that he, as a president, not many presidents would ring up and think, he didn't even know that we had a couple of health clubs in England. Wouldn't ring up and say, "Come and rescue these jobs," and it was great.